Guys, Chris and Josh here from the Brothers Boyd, and today we're sitting in with Mark McKenna to talk about his creator-owned comic called The Tomb of Balvereth. Hey, Mark, it's nice to have you here with us.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me.
Yeah. We're excited to have you. I really enjoyed reading this book, man. I picked it up this afternoon and I really enjoyed it. I actually went back and read it twice. I was so into it.
That is that's an affidavit right there. I appreciate that. I played a publisher mostly on the second book. I was a big fan of the old horror, old EC stuff from the 1950s. So I try to pay a homage to that stuff and keep the stories short and sweet. Not sweet necessarily, horrific, but
Oh
you
yeah.
know, uh, yeah, but fun though.
Yes. Yeah. So what's the first character you ever created?
My monkey character called Banana Tail was the first thing I actually ever created. Oops. It's a monkey. The monkey thinks he's turning into a banana. I did this when my kids were newborn and 4 years old, and now they're both married. But I always thought if I could do something like that myself and have the following that I had at Marvel and DC, then I could do more product. And then I started with the Combat Jacks, which is my backdrop too.
Nice.
Um, and then Balbrith became the third thing, my third IP that I worked on.
Nice. Um so I'm taking it your kids made you want to create the monkey character. Um what's the basis for the backstory? What made you formulate it that way?
The monkey book.
Yes.
So my daughter had an operation on her throat to remove a cyst in her throat. I remember taking her right out of the hospital to Toys R Us, and I thought, if I want to, I would love to be on the other side of this, like make something that kids really want. And at the time, she was 4 years old, and I liked, and I used to bounce ideas off of her. What do you like this? What do you think about the monkey doing that? My father was alive at the time, and he had aspirations to be a writer, and he actually thought the monkey should have a banana for a tail, and I thought it was too weird to have a banana for a tail, so I made him yellow-tailed instead. But I currently have four storybooks out, and then I did a comic book for Halloween a few years ago called the Banana Tail Halloween Special, and it was and I did very well with that in the stores. I sold I think 1,100 copies to a comic shop, and a lot of that came from me being a comic book artist for Marvel and DC. So a lot of people were curious about what I had to offer outside of the Spider-Man and Batman universe.
Awesome. Now
All right,
you
so
go ahead,
go ahead,
Chris.
Josh. Okay, so let's dive in just a little bit to the Marvel and DC. I know you worked for both for a long time. Just kind of tell our fans, like, maybe who was your favorite character to draw?
I was a big Silver Surfer fan, primarily because I like doing space scenes, and I got caught up in the character. He's a bad guy. His girlfriend gets blown up on the planet. And, the Galactus, Fantastic Four connection. Uh, he was hard to draw though because he's shiny metal.
Yeah.
So that part of it I didn't like, but I did get an opportunity to do a couple of Silver Surfer stories. I did a backup stories in an annual back in the early '90s, and I did a fill-in issue on a Silver Surfer '96 second volume back in the early '90s also, which was cool because I had Smart Hulk, it had the Thing, had Ant-Man, and then the Silver Surfer. So he was my guy though. I like those more cosmic characters, Adam Warlock, and I also like Black Bolt from the Inhumans too.
Nice.
So we can't let this get away, Josh, without asking you, Mark. We know that Marvel has just announced a Fantastic Four movie. Are you hoping to see Silver Surfer in that movie?
Yeah, anytime, yeah, they do that. I'm
Yeah,
looking forward to it.
awesome.
Yeah, I didn't think they did a bad job with him in the other movie. I thought he looked good.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
movies.
I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah,
Rise of the Silver Surfer. He did look really good in that
yeah.
movie.
Doug Jones, you put that Doug Jones, that tall, skinny guy, and you could put him in that kind of outfit, and it looks good. I mean, they played it a little bit for joke, a little joke. The director was a little more on the jokey side, but I'm looking forward to it always. I go to any Marvel movie. I go to all of them. I feel like it's part of my job.
Yeah. Well, no, I love what they
Right.
did with the Silver Surfer, but Galactus was horribly done.
Terrible, terrible. It's just a big billowy cloud or
Yeah,
whatever it was. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Hopefully, they'll give him some respect.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope we get a comic accurate Galactus coming up. Now you've talked about that and working with those. Who were some of your influences on your writing and artistic style?
Uh, when I started out as a huge Brian Boland fan, Judge Dredd, um, he was a guy who I was really excited. I was very brush rendering, very specific about his stuff. Jerry Ordway was another guy. I forgot the books he was working on, but I wasn't story connected as much as I was more about the art. So I wouldn't buy a story for, I wouldn't buy a book for story. I'd buy it for art. Wasn't as big into Gil Kane, but or Jack Kirby, believe it or not. But those guys, they paved the way for a lot of us. So big respect there.
Yeah, I find as I get older, I as a kid I bought for the characters, but as I get older, I'm finding myself buying books for the creators, the
Oh
writer,
yeah,
artist. I'm following certain artists and certain writers to whatever book they're writing at the time, and really
yeah, yeah. That's a good way of doing it, really.
um, so, what do you think about the state of comics today?
Hard to sell books like they did back in the '90s. I was part of the boom back in 1992 when everything was selling, quarter million copies to a million copies. I did a backup story of Spider-Man 375. It sold 1.1 million copies. I don't think those numbers are there anymore. I don't think kids are reading comics anymore. I remember Dan DiDio was the editor in chief at DC. Was at a Comic Con one time and said, when the one of the older guys that was at the show, when he passes away, there's no one to hold the torch, and continue with the business. So I mean, people still read them. It's just that it's far and few between. I mean, I did six books back in 1992 that sold over 400,000 copies each. It was Nomad I was working on, Darkhold. Um, uh, there was I did a Spider-Man 2099. I did an X Factor annual. All those books sold tremendous. But you don't get that. You're not getting that anymore. So I don't. What I'd like to see do is when every time they put a new movie out, they should have a kiosk at the movie theater and sell comic books right after the movie theater.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea to do something like that.
Even if they just had the facsimile editions of what the movie was based on, it would get people into it and get them into the books.
Yeah, I'll tell you a quick story. I did the Wolverine movie prequel from 2003 when the first X-Men movie came out, and Toys R Us asked Marvel if they could do a sampler of it instead of the 48-page book. They gave them a 16 or 18-page sampler, but every time you bought something at Toys R Us, they gave you the free comic book. So that was kind of cool. And then when you bought a ticket to see the movie, they gave you a version of the book that I did, which was weird because I paid to see the movie and then they gave me my own comic book.
I was gonna say, I think I've got some of those Toys R Us books
Yeah.
in one of my long boxes in the closet.
Yeah, yeah, it was had a sentinel on the cover and they're fighting with it. And then they did the movie version, which is a black cover, I think with photos maybe of the characters.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
go ahead, Chris.
Let me. Yeah. So we were talking about the state of comic books and where they are. And I feel like what's kind of I don't want to say hurting it. I mean, stuff is still getting read, but I feel like digital's taking away from that trip to the comic shop to pick up that book or where you need. What's your thoughts on like digital? As a medium.
I I don't do the digital, you know, I don't read anything on a screen. For me, it's sitting with a physical book in my hand, you know. I know it's always been that way. I'm old school though. I'm in my 60s, so I don't really connect with it. I will say that Marvel's paying digital royalties to us creators every time somebody downloads one of your books. You get a percentage of it. It's not any money. I mean, it could be 1 cent, 2 cents, 3 cents. In fact, I just got a royalty from Marvel, and it was 16 pages of printouts, and it was $33. There wasn't a lot of money there, but they are uh, people are buying them. I guess, you know, digitals. It's just not my style, you know.
Yeah, you can tell from behind me, with my center rack, and if you look right here, these were my pickups for today. So I love that physical media too. I'd rather hold it in my hand and actually read it.
Yeah,
There's something about that.
yeah,
I I love having the physical copies. The only time I read digitally now is if it's something like a classic that I can't find that I want to read, or it's a like an Action Comics #1, you know,
mm,
that unless you can find a facsimile copy, you can't read that. You can't
right,
find it anywhere where you can afford it.
yeah. So, I mean, of course, there's the other part of the collectability and the expense of having I have Avengers #1 that I bought when I was 13 years old for $7, and my mom smacked me in the back of the head and said, "What are you spending your money on this crap?" You know, book's worth, 2 grand, today. I mean, it's a 3.0, but can't say digitally you could sell it, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Now let's get into your book a little bit here. We've got The Tomb of Balberith is what we're talking about tonight. Not for the lighthearted. It is a very horrific book, and I loved it. I love a good horror movie. I love a good horror story, and it really got me going with this one.
Thanks.
Um, Tell us about your book.
So originally, because I was a fan of the old Wally Wood, Frank Frazetta, Tales of the Crypt, Vault of Horror. I had those collections, those hardbound slipcase collections, and I adore them. Um, and there, you get in, you get out. It's not continued stories, so you can do a 5 or a 10 page story, get in, get out, get your point across, and move along. So for me, it was very finite. It wasn't whereas my character Combat Jacks is, something that you can take and keep moving along with it. This was like Balberith is the demon boss of these monsters that he releases on humanity to collect souls, hearts, or brains that feed him. And the creatures that they release are based on characters that my creative team wanted to make. So my creative team would create their own characters and their own storylines, and I would help them if they needed an anchor or they needed help story with story. We were all kind of interactive together. So I'd have some guys that are better at drawing, some guys are better at writing, and I put all these guys together and I mixed them up, and they came out with this kind of fun smorgasbord of horror, And Balbert's the only continual character, him and the Jester, the Joker character, who kind of is his henchman. All the other characters are disposable, which is okay with me, unless they're so popular that somebody says, bring back so and so character, then maybe at some point I would. But they all meet their demise at the end of their stories. And then my hope is that after doing two of these, that I'll do a third one, and then I'll do a collection, and it'll be of over 100 pages because the first issue is 48, the second one's 36. So I'm around 20 pages away from finishing it. I'll probably end up being like a 112-page collection, and it'll have plenty of monsters and stuff. It's all about, for me, it was all about making monsters, Clive
Nice.
Barker kind of stuff, which I'm a big Clive Barker fan too.
Nice. Well, we read issue 1. I'm gonna have to find issue 2 now because I want to read that one.
I'll
Uh,
take care of you. I'll send them in the mail for you guys. I didn't realize you
awesome.
had them.
Yeah, we appreciate it, man, because
Yeah,
that's a great story. I mean, Balbereth is a cool character. I like the jester. I like the way he, reacted in the story, the way he looked. I thought he was great. Clowns are scary as crap anyway. He was pretty scary.
Yeah.
Chris, what about
I
you?
Yeah, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm a huge Stephen King fan. I love to read Stephen King books, and one of my favorite style of Stephen King books is like the anthologies where you get more than one story. You get seven or eight, and I love how Balbarith kind of felt like that, but
Yeah.
it was all tied together in that one story because the whole point of each one of those anthologies was you have to get these parts and the souls and the brains in order to restore Balrog's power. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great thing,
Yeah.
and
You
I
talked,
just
I'm sorry,
go ahead.
talking about his anthology. The Books of Blood was that Clive Barker's anthology, I believe. I mean, when you said Stephen King, it made me think of that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I love Books of Blood too. I have read that one as well. Clive Barker is another one of my favorite writers too.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
So
it's something I enjoy doing. It was nice to play a different part for me, and be the mainstream comic guy who's being publisher, not it, versus being an artist. In fact, my son Kyle wrote one of the stories in the second book. People are like, "Why did your name is Mark McKenna? Why did you put K McKenna?" I said, "That's my son's name." And so I gave him his first chop, which was kind of fun because this is actually one of the better stories in the book.
and
Well,
just passing along that knowledge and keeping it going. I love that. And, uh, my daughter is like my biggest like go to Comic Cons with me. She loves to do that.
Yeah, yeah. The guys that wrote a couple of stories are going to be doing the Garden State Comic Fest in Morristown, New Jersey, in June. So they're going to be pushing the Balbert stuff, which is fine by me.
all right, Mark. I don't know if you can see this on my screen, but I'm gonna pull it up and see if it'll show. It may be too bright. Is that all you?
For some reason, your big picture locked up, but your small picture is available. Like in the screen, I'm seeing you, me, and Chris on top. Oh,
Uh,
there it is. Oh, you have the Jester.
yes.
That's
That's one of the pages from the book that really freaked me out.
yeah. That's a
That
great.
guy is great. Is that your artwork?
Yeah, me and Kevin West. Kevin
Yes.
West is actually my artist on Banana Tail. The
Uh,
guy's so talented; he could draw funny animals and he could do horrific monsters too.
that's good. A good variety there.
Yeah, and thank you for having it. It's one of my favorite pieces.
Yeah, that's a great piece. I wouldn't put it on the wall because I'd wake up and be scared to death.
Yeah,
Same.
And I mean, if I go back to the demons from this first book, I'm trying to get to the page. The Boog, which was the big mouth guy,
yeah,
uh, Volition, which was the one that was stealing the brains, and the Creep, who was stealing the hearts.
right.
Now, in order for Balbereth to control these bad dudes, he's got to be bad too.
Yeah, he's
I mean, even worse.
even worse. Yeah, those guys are just hungry, and eating. He wants to live and be powerful and take over for his den of demons. So, and the rest of the demons are afraid of him too. So,
Yes, you
he's
got
the
to
big
have that intimidation factor there.
he's the big baddie. He's the Galactus of the Balworth universe.
Yeah, I
I
really
like it.
enjoyed the Boog story with the boy and the blind girl. I thought
Yeah,
that was a great story. When you got to Volition and you realized that I want to say that's a she, Volition, that she was sacrificing her power to steal the brains and that she would get her power back after she failed Balberith. She would go and get more to feed herself. I
right.
was like, that's pretty powerful that you're sacrificing your power just to give it to the other guy.
Yeah, I mean that's Victor Castro's story. Those guys they all came to play, came to play. And the problem is some of these guys they get these great ideas, but they don't know how to end them.
Yeah.
So that's where I'd come in and say, let's figure out how to wrap this up. And I would, if I couldn't do it myself, then because I've been co-creating comics for 38 years, I have some sense of how to make things end. But if I couldn't, or I know I fall short as a scripter, but I know how to write ideas and be an idea man. But I had this guy Sam Eagleston who wrote one of the stories. He wrote the creep, I think the creep story, and he could help me finalize things, and that's where we kept it tight with the little team of guys I had. There's things I feel comfortable doing, and then there's things that I'm like I need help, you know, with how to get it to the next level. I always did Banana Tail. My monkey book is something I thought would be an easy thing to just run with. But when you think about Simon and Schuster or Little Brown Publishing, there's only 20, 30 books that come out a year that they do, but they get 10,000 submissions. So it's really hard. It's like winning the lottery, getting your books out there. So I always came up from the idea is I'm a mainstream comic book guy. I'll go to Comic Cons and I'll promote the book and do grassroots method and build it that way. Um,
Awesome. And you kind of segued into my last question. You mentioned the Comic Cons. Can the industry survive without them?
Comic Cons have changed. My first Comic Cons were back in the '80s, but now cosplaying has become such an important part of it. I've seen guys that just cater to cosplay and comic comic parts or not. You go to a Comic Con and there's nobody selling comic books. They're selling Pokemon and anime and manga stuff, and they're not Comic Cons then anymore, though, are they? They're everything else but. They're media cons. I was doing 20 cons a year, and I was selling books at the shows. But really, when I go to Comic Con, people want me to do Spider-Man and Batman. I try. I don't. I'm not a big guy pimping my own product. I have it there on the counter, but I'm not a guy to sit there and say, "You want to see the greatest thing ever? This is it." I'll do your Batman and your Spider-Man, and maybe I'll sell a dozen, Balbarits or something like that. Uh, but I got a couple of these young guys now that are hungry and they're going to go to do these local shows, and more power to them if they can help that book become more than what I started out being. That's where we'll go.
Awesome. Yeah, that's the way I feel about it. A lot of the cons are not comic centric anymore. The ones that are really great. And that's the way it should be. Yeah, there's a place for everybody and everything, but you've got to have the comics there too. Because you can't call it a Comic Con if you don't have comics.
No, it's true. Um,
But yeah, you're talking about the Comic Cons, and we tend to kind of work our way towards like the independent comic people, and we like to pick up their work just to help support them because we know, the future of comics may be that person that you bought a comic from that he's trying to make it. So
Lady Death, Evil Ernie, Brian Polito. I mean, his stuff was hanging in a comic shop where I used to frequent, and he asked the comic shop owner if he could meet me at some point, and he set up an appointment with me, and Brian ended up being my plus one at the DC Christmas party that year, but I'd have him over the house, and all he would do is talk business. And I'm like, shut up and eat. He was so adamant and so passionate about it. He's got that level, that gear, that fourth gear that not everybody has, and his passion takes it to that level. And the guy, made millions of dollars selling Lady Death stuff. Um, whereas maybe it wasn't good in the beginning, but he still had the passion, and people started to buy into it. Whereas I put out a good project, I put out a quality project, but I'm not a carnival barker who tells you you got to buy this book is the best thing since sliced cheese. Um, but that's we're cut from different molds.
again, we're here with Mark. We really appreciate him being here with us and just talking comics. I mean, what's funner than sitting around talking comics? I mean, 'cause, you know, the one who dies with the most toys wins. That's my motto. So I never want to get old. I want to just keep talking comics. And until the next episode, we will see you guys at the shop.